Welcome back, everybody, to another retro review with myself, Tyler, and Matt.
What's up, guys?
Today, we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, Matt, you've come very festive. You've come prepared with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt.
I don't bring much to this podcast, but decent shirts.
You bring a different perspective.
No, I know.
Right? You are more of the casual viewer.
Yeah.
For the audience, if you're new here.
The typical fan, if you will.
Right. And I work professionally in the industry as an editor, and I do other things as well. So, yeah, different perspectives here, and that's a fun, unique way to kind of have us both watch the film and give our thoughts.
Yeah. I think it's been fun. We did the Sandlot previous to this, so check that one out if you haven't yet. I like that dynamic we've got.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah, it'd be fun. So we checked out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
And we kind of start this stuff out. We talk about the last time that we saw the movie, which for me was probably about last summer.
Was not for me. It would have been like the summer of like 2009. No, it was a long time ago though. Probably over a decade.
Nice.
Honestly.
Nice.
I never saw the TMNT, the 2007 film. I saw the sequels to the 1990 film. I never saw the 2007 film. Mm-hmm. I saw the first Bay film. I didn't see the second.
Didn't see the second. So it's a bit sporadic.
Yeah.
Well, we will give our thoughts on the film right after this. Awesome!
Welcome back, guys. Tyler, let's dive right into the plot. I think that's the perfect way to start.
Yes. Is it the perfect way to start? Do you think that's what the filmmakers said when they decided to make this movie? Like, oh, yes, the perfect place to start is the plot. The plot is weak sauce.
Yes. Yeah. I was surprised to see or to re-see, because, again, I haven't seen it since my youth. And I was a little disappointed in the film plot overall. I think
it's very thin.
Yeah,
it's like the motivations, I think, are all across the board very vague and not clear.
Yeah, very unclear
at all. And it's interesting. I mean, it's a kids film, right? It was made for kids. Yeah. We were kids when it came out. Well, we weren't even alive. Technically, right?
Yeah. So, we weren't around yet. But it was kids when it came out. I know that. My brothers.
Right. Like, yeah. I realized as I said words that came out of my mouth, I was like, yeah, we were not around.
Well, this is made for the late 80s kids. Right?
The late 80s kids. Basically, 80s the kids that grew up on the cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which were very different from the comic books. But they tried to mush and meld, I think, those two tones together. I think they did it fairly well. I think that's it was a highlight of the film, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, you felt that kind of dark grittiness that you get from the comics, but also that lightheartedness from the animated. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. And I think they struck that balance very well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that changes as the sequels are made. Clearly, parents didn't like the film or thought it was too dark, and the sequels are a lot lighter. They take away the weapons in the second movie. So, yep. They literally fight with no weapons in the second movie whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's
it's a lot of karate and a lot of kicking, but there's
part of how you tell the turtles apart, comic book wise,
right?
Because when they, those of you that might not know, originally they all were the same color eye bandana thing, right?
Yeah.
And the only reason they gave them different colors was to sell toys and the cartoon, so kids can tell the difference.
Right.
Pick their favorites.
So the kids could tell the difference.
Yeah, you're totally right. They definitely don't have.
They weapons. Don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah. So speaking of the darkness, there was the director that came on. There's actually a couple of interesting facts that I found. One of the writers one of the editors was the editor that edits for Quentin Tarantino.
Okay. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. And the director almost got fired for making it too dark. They almost fired him.
Really?
Yeah.
So he probably one more of the comic book adaptation, right? From my understanding, the comics have always been on the darker side.
I would assume so. And a lot of times that's kind of normal, where the studio wants a certain tone and a certain vibe, and the director really has to fight for their vision. It's a really weird system. It's like the director comes in, the director will pitch the film and say, this is my take on the script. This is how I see the movie.
Right.
And then they get hired. But then the studio they start to see the footage, right? You start to shoot things and then the studio looks at the footage and then they start to make changes. It's kind of backwards. It's like, well, he pitched you his vision, his or her vision. So why don't you just trust them? But studios don't always do that. Yeah. And now look, they're in a world of hurt right now. So
yeah,
because they're not trusting of their creatives and the people that they hire. But that's a whole nother video for a different day.
Yeah, that's a whole different can of worms.
We don't have to go down that path. But we do stand in solidarity with the actors and the writers. And so let's talk about. See, we mentioned the plot was thin.
Yeah.
And
a little jumbled and confusing.
Right. And spoilers here. We're going to spoil.
3 years to watch the film. But yes, spoilers.
Spoilers. So yeah, the basic plot, I mean, is, Splinter, the bad guy.
Yeah.
Or not Splinter, sorry, Shredder.
Yeah, Shredder, yeah.
Shredder. That's how thin the plot is.
Have you ever seen How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
So Barney Stinson's favorite characters are always like the villains. So like, the Karate Kid to him is Billy Zabka's character, and that's what that reminded me of. Yeah. Just Barney Stinson, the villain Splinter.
Exactly, the villain is Splinter. And so it's just very thin because he's having these kids, he's corrupting these youth of New York, right? The youth of New York is being corrupted to steal televisions,
just everything. Well, yeah, televisions, purses, radios, be a bad kid,
VCRs or Betamax or whatever they had in 1989 or whenever they filmed this.
Recorders.
Yeah, record players, right? And for some reason, this made the children rebellious.
Yeah,
I think in the movie suffers because of it, because it's so weak. I think it was a case of adults trying to make a movie for younger kids and not having any connection. They're just like, oh, what do kids do? Oh, they watch TV, they play video games, and it's like it felt very they weren't educated.
Yeah.
In that realm at all, and they were just like, let's just have them steal televisions.
Yeah.
And it's like Shredder's motivation is there's nothing in the film.
Yeah,
and it's kind of frustrating.
I guess the kids were there to like, hey, if you're good at stealing, eventually we'll let you become a foot member.
Right.
Because we saw like
we're going to train you
graduate, but like still it's a very weak recruiting process, right?
Totally.
And it was just I don't know, man.
It's kind of
And then like ultimately Shredder wanted to like go after the Turtles because they thwarted an attempted robbery on April O'Neil.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like Turtles.
Yeah, like well, and April was trying to get the story out, right? There's kind of that there's a couple different plots, very tiny, small, vague plots in this movie. But yeah, April's trying to break the story of.
It makes sense for him to want to go after April, but they don't do a great job explaining why the Turtles are they're his enemies.
Exactly, yeah. And there's some interesting, just different dynamics, and I mean, I really liked, my favorite scenes were the Turtles in April.
Yeah.
Right. It felt like the script was focused on that. The script really enjoyed that, and they just saw Shredder as like this villain guy, but like we're not gonna. And they tried to tie him into the story, the backstory, right? And it was interesting, given their limited budget. But it would have been nice. One thing that we mentioned when we watched it together was how short the movie is, and how it could have benefited with some more runtime.
Yeah, that's kind of every time you and I have watched a movie in general, not just these retro rewatches or anything. You've always brought up the idea of pacing, right? That's the word.
Pacing, yeah.
And we've always kind of argued, okay, this one should have done 10 more minutes, 20 more minutes, or they could have omitted like a half an hour, right? That's always been our thing.
Right.
This film was like, an hour and a half, I think it was?
Yeah.
30
ish. Something like that.
Definitely could have used more time. Don't know if it was a budget thing. What it was, because it was considered independent, right? This film
definitely was at the time considered independent. They did have some help. The creatures were done by Jim Henson, which did the Muppets and Jim Henson Company, Labyrinth, that type. That's where the Turtles came from. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was fantastic. Like those animatronics were pretty special.
Oh yeah, the animatronics and puppeteering and all that was amazing. You could definitely tell that's where the majority of that budget probably did fall.
Yeah.
Because sure. I remember we were watching a scene and you're like, man, Splinter's eyes just look like legitimately wet.
Yeah.
And they pulled out all the stops to make those suits and stuff look pretty authentic.
Yeah. I mean, and you kind of have to, if you got X amount of money, it's like, well, the majority of our money needs to make sure that these turtles and this rat work.
Heroes of the film.
They have
good.
Yeah, they have to work, or this movie falls even flatter than it. And I don't know. It's just so interesting. It's been a couple of weeks since we've watched this movie, and I've just thought about like just the making of the film. Mm-hmm. Like, how did this? Were they so focused on getting the animatronics and all that stuff correct that they didn't worry about the story, or did they just think that this was a kids movie, so they didn't focus on the story too much? I don't know.
Or were they forced to remove more, since you mentioned that the studio said it was too dark, that they cut some of that stuff to remove that darkness and let the plot suffer because of it?
That is true. There was a cut plot, or kind of an avenue that they went down. They shot more stuff with Mikey on the farm.
That's what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Before it started.
So they escape April's home and they go to the farm, and I guess Mikey, there's this whole plot where he falls into a darker state and like gets really depressed and starts like training and like punching a bag in the barn. And the shot where it's Raphael's voice, but he's like, Splinter, he like yells it. Apparently, if you look closely, that's actually Mikey.
Oh.
And they just, that's what I learned that this weekend. I was like, oh, like he's got,
after this, we got to go on
like,
YouTube and
like he's got the nunchucks and everything that Mikey, it's all there.
Does, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it.
So they just did a little dub of voiceover, and
makes you wonder why, like it makes you wonder on these old films, like what was the reasoning? Sometimes it's easy to find it.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes not so much, but like, why did that get cut? Just because it was a time issue?
Right. I think,
whatever it could have been.
Well, I mean, and think about it this way and this is, I want you to talk about the point that you had about the individuality of each turtle.
Yeah.
If they had gone down that route and they had Mikey take this kind of darker turn, it really is out of character and really would have been kind of, I don't know what they shot, but if they just, given what I've seen, they're not the strongest storytellers. So I feel like it would have just been a huge shift and out of character for Mikey to just all of a sudden be this brooding Raphael type of character.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have really fit what they set up basically the whole movie.
Yeah. Because with these turtles, so I think if you're a true turtle fan, an avid turtle fan of some sort, you really probably know the difference between the four turtles, right? Leo's the leader, Ralph's usually hot-headed, Donnie's typically intelligence and like good with computer tech, right? Mikey's the goofball. In this film, they really just went with like two personalities for the most part. It felt like, right. Donnie and Mikey were virtually the same person. They were always shot and seen as like the goofy two turtles, like we're gonna make jokes and let's go get pizza and all that. Mm-hmm. Where like Leo and Raph then stepped in to be like the more serious too. And there was, I think, enough personality between maybe Leo and Raph because they did dispute, we should do this, no, we should do this, we should go now, we should go later.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that was really just like, they weren't, the turtles that we've come to love were a little bit flatter and more two-dimensional, I guess.
Yeah.
One-dimensional.
And I wonder if that changes in the sequels or if they all just kind of become goofballs. I feel like they might all just kind of become goofy.
What I really should have done is took the couple weeks from watching it to recording. I really should have watched the sequels. Mm-hmm. Even though this is primarily about the first one, I probably should have just to have those references.
Yeah.
because now that you mentioned they got rid of the weapons, I'm pretty sure they're goofier.
I would assume so. It's a much lighter tone in the sequel.
And the reason I'm just thinking that's the case too is when I was thinking back to this film when we talked about watching it, I was like, oh, I remember this time where like I started watching the film, I stopped it, I made pizza to eat pizza with them. But that scene's in the second movie. Like, oh, okay, where they like the guy was delivering a pizza early. Yeah,
he's delivering a pizza early on. Yep.
And I was like, oh, but like all my memories from the second movie, so I'm pretty sure that one's a lot lighter and
it's a lot more kid friendly.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I remember it.
Yeah,
and not so much the first one because it was pretty dark and gritty for like a chill child for adolescent finger targets.
Yeah, even though I watched this. This is as early as I can remember. I got two uncles that are about 12 to 13 years older than I am. Okay. And so they had it on. From the moment I can remember watching the CRT tube TVs. Batman 89, all three original Star Wars movies, this, a bunch of other things, that were on the TV. But so from my earliest memories, this stuff was kind of on repeat. So yeah, those are kind of my earliest memories was, 3 years old and seeing the Turtles on the little TV. Awesome. It was interesting seeing it in high definition.
Yeah.
Right. Which that's something that they weren't like, they didn't know that was going to be a thing when they made this movie.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. That's why old movies look goofy.
Right.
Goofy to us, right? Because you watch something in black and white, like where the heck's the color? You watch something that's in color, but was shot back in the days of VHS and tube TVs.
Tube TV,
they don't have 4K,
right? And they had no idea that their work was going to be blown up in this high definition and seen on these 50, 60, 80-inch TVs. They didn't know that. So
this wouldn't have been shot in like widescreen format like we have now, right? If our tube TVs were more of like actual perfect squares, right?
So the actual film of it is,
yeah.
But then the original film print is, and then it gets degraded. Like for VHS, it's printed on VHS tape, which is less quality than the actual film print.
Okay,
but that's why when you have restorations of old films that come out in 4K, they go back to the original film print and rescan it, but the native film print is always there. That's the highest. That's the highest quality,
right?
That you have. So we had DVDs, which were 720, and then we had Blu-rays, which were 1080, and so you would always go back to that original film print and rescan it to get the most current quality.
Okay.
But back then, we were watching it on VHS tape, which was the lowest quality possible.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know. More, Tyler knows stuff I don't.
Yeah, just kind of,
educate them.
Right. Hopefully, when you guys watch these reviews, you can be educated and you can learn things.
Yeah. And have opinions, man. Let us know in the comments.
And have opinions. Let us know.
Tell us why the plot's the best. Whatever.
Hey, if you can, and nostalgia aside, that's another thing that I think, and who knows, we might get heat from people in the comments, but it's like, you have to, and if you were 10 years old when this movie came out and you watched it at 10 and you haven't seen it in, 15 to 20 to 30 years, or whatever. Right. I think nostalgia colors a lot of people's perceptions. And it's like, maybe you should, before you make a declarative statement of this is the best plot ever, maybe you should revisit the movie, maybe you should. And but hey, do I recommend the movie? Do I recommend it as a watch? Definitely. And I think you do too.
I would certainly enjoy watching it more frequently than I have in the past.
Yes.
Plot or not, like, the nostalgia is there enough to make me want to come back. And there are good elements. So we're certainly going to get into some of the fun elements that we've enjoyed.
Right.
It's just, unfortunately, the plot is the point of the story. And so when the plot's a little rough, like, it's easy to point that out, right?
Yeah.
So you want to switch gears and talk about some of the things that you really enjoyed, or?
Let's talk about that. Yeah, let's go in that direction.
Yeah. Okay. So anything off the top that you're like, this really? You already mentioned the dynamic with April and the Turtles. Anything else? Or
I think that's it for me. I mean, I really think that I don't know. And some of the stuff that I think they started the movie off really strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what it is like the first 15 minutes, I think is probably some of my favorite stuff because it does kind of get goofier as the movie progresses, right? Like you open up and you have Raph lose his sigh, right? And he's all like, damn. They say damn quite a lot in this movie.
You forget how much. So this came out in the 90s, right? So 30-some years old. And you forget how much PG or PG-13 differences from then to now, right?
Yeah.
Like things have very much changed. Because we saw kids in the Foot Clan hangout spot, like smoking cigars.
Right, yeah.
Like if they remade this, they would probably just be playing the arcade games and not smoking cigars. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They said damn a lot in The Sandlot too, didn't they?
They definitely
Scotty said it once.
A couple times.
Yeah, a couple times.
I think they said the S word once in that too. But yeah, damn seemed to be their favorite word in the Turtle film.
Yes. It was. Well, yeah. I mean, when they're walking back to their home, Raph says it like 5 times. Damn. It's like, settle down there, Turtle. You know, like, hey.
It is Raph, though.
It is Raph.
There's no settle down simmer to him.
And it's funny how, like, the other turtles don't give a shit.
No.
The other turtles are just like, like, we did a great job. And apparently it was like their first, so they rescued April is what they did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is the first heroic act they've ever.
Yeah, and that was the first time that they ever went out. Yeah. And ninjutsu.
Is that what they called it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ninjutsu. Yeah. And then they have that little dance with the same song that's in The Sandlot.
Side note. So, if you guys haven't, again, check out the Sandlot review we did. But tequila's in that song, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And they used tequila in this film. So, like, the second it played, we both glanced at each other and we're like, yep. Yep. So, we joked about only connecting our movies through the soundtrack. They're kind of challenging, but I know it must be kind of fun.
That would be interesting. But yes, that song is in both these films, which I thought was, I don't know, the universe works in mysterious ways, and that is one way that it worked. That's really nice. But no, I thought the actress, I don't know her name, I didn't look it up, but the actress.
Hogue.
Is that her name?
Hogue. Yeah.
Well, she played April fantastically. I thought she did a really great job.
But she didn't come back to the second film, I know that.
No, she didn't, and that's sad. They should have, I don't know if it was a money thing or what, but they should have paid her whatever she wanted.
If I remember reading the IMDb trivia, that's where I learn all my little tidbits of info.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, she didn't like the violence of the film. Again, it was too dark.
But they lined it up, so she should have been able to come back.
She probably just was like, I'm done before they even made that decision.
Yeah.
She probably wrote herself out of it before they even.
Yeah. And, that is an issue for some people. Some people, are like, no, I don't want to be in X type of movie because of the violence. And I totally understand.
I mean, as a viewer, there's things that I watched. I'm like, this was not necessary violence or blood or gore.
John Wick.
I feel that way with Saw. Like the first Saw film,
is a perfect example.
Was like a pretty good, it was a scary movie, gory, whatever. But like the story to it was intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more Saws that came out, it was more about how can I make this crazy contraption with more blood and guts.
Yeah,
I get it.
It gets old after a while and gets to be a little too intense for some. But how violent is the Turtles film really?
Well, I guess in the 90s though, weren't they have the big video games make people violent and stuff?
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, so that's probably all part of it, right?
Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah. So one of the things I did enjoy, though, was the quickness and the right down to the point origin stories of our heroes, right?
Right.
It was those shadow flashback scenes were a little cheesy or corny or whatever.
Yeah, very artsy.
you can tell they're probably shooting it that way to cover up the budget that they had or something along those lines. But what I did like is we didn't have to have a whole movie that was like all origin stories.
Right.
Like you make this film in 2023 and we're getting this long drawn out story about the kids stealing stuff so they can join the Foot Clan to get recruited, and Raphael's probably looking for a Sai the whole time, right? And they maybe get to meet and fight Shredder at the end, but Shredder probably won't be the first villain anymore, right? They would have like a B villain in the first film, because that's what you do in your origin stories these days. And then the second film would have been kind of all the stuff with Shredder. And again, you can argue it would have made the story stronger or whatever, but I really like that they're just like, I had 4 turtles and they fell in ooze and I raised them. Here they are. And then, here they are. I get animated apparently. Here they are. And, and then that was it. And then down the road towards the end, we had the same thing with Splinter's backstory. Like,
it's like my master Yoshi. And
the whole time Shredder's like, these turtles fight familiar.
Yeah.
And then, it was just a quick 5-minute, like, my master Yoshi and I scratched your face, but I kind of like that, like I don't need always, like, especially with characters that are established, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't need another Batman origin film or Superman or Ninja Turtles.
No, we don't. Definitely not.
Like half the Marvel characters now won't ever need one again for another 20, 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been 30 years with these characters, and it's like, we don't need to see these origins anymore.
Yeah.
The lack of budget, that was probably either some sort of, second unit that had like, and it's only a spotlight. It really looks like they only had like maybe 3 hours to 2 hours total to shoot all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, very, very low budget, but I think it was very creative.
Yeah.
To show us that, because if you've watched the cartoon, you know that, right? I guess you know that about the Turtles.
Yeah.
But for people who don't know,
you should always probably, I'm not saying don't do an origin story, but like, I like the, like if you're going to make a, 20 years from now, we don't have any more Batman films and you want to make a new Batman film, you're probably going to want to do a quick snippet of the origin, right? But nothing.
Right.
So like, and that's what I think I liked.
Right.
It gave the new fans an understanding of the current, like who these guys are. And it gave current, lifelong fans, like, we didn't need all that. So it gave us what we needed. I just thought it was pretty well done.
And in the script, in the screenplay, it was used effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It was Splinter, telling April the backstory. So it was like, it made sense. It didn't just come out of nowhere. It's like, all right.
Yeah, April's going to know where these mutated turtles came from.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. It felt right. And then, same thing when it came back up for Splinter's backstory. It was just told the right way.
He was telling Danny because he needed to relate to Danny. He's like, oh, I had a father, I had a master, and so I think, and that realistically, the scenes between Splinter and the Turtles, that relationship, and even the scenes with Splinter and Danny are very good. Like, that's the emotional core of the film.
Yeah.
And it seems like, maybe they should have leaned into that a little bit more.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Casey Jones yet. How'd you feel about
we haven't talked
character?
about that character. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think missed opportunity.
Okay.
And he didn't come back in the sequels either. I don't know why. Or at least this, from what I can remember. I think the second movie, I don't think he comes back.
Right?
Yeah.
Go back to like ancient Japan or something.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. He's got a strong opening, right? Him and Raph fight. And I don't know. It would have been nice to see him maybe involved in the final fight at some.
Yeah.
He just stays on the ground
pretty early, right?
Yeah.
He showed up with first 20, 30 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
he's in there
early. Yeah, you're right.
I just think he could have been used a little bit better. And it would have been nice if he would have come in and maybe helped in that final fight against Shredder or something. I don't know, something. He kind of does. He hits the goons with the golf club, I guess, or whatever. But
yeah. But isn't that to free Splinter?
Yeah.
Because I mean, Splinter's part of the final fight, isn't he?
Well, Shredder runs at him.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
goes, "Oh."
I wouldn't even talk that golf swing with Casey Jones being part of the final fight.
No, that's technically probably not the final fight.
Yeah. Yeah, see, this is what's nice about talking to somebody in the business. Like, I didn't even think. Like,
Missed opportunity.
You're absolutely right. He should have.
And he was there. It's not like I would understand if he was off doing something else. Like if he had to go take care of something else and he wasn't there. But the dude was there. He was there.
Yeah, he only had one villain. There wasn't like two villains to get resolution
like
from.
They were all down on the street just looking up at the thing. And they're like, oh, you think that the turtles and that rat are up there? Like,
yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
Yeah. For me, another thing I liked again is they gave us, they introduced like some of the big, you have the Ninja Turtles. And of course you have April sort of like that fifth helper. And then Casey Jones has always been like that extra help, like that almost like Robin to their Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So to give us that right away in the first film, I thought was really cool. Because again, looking at into a lens of a 2023 modern day lens, we're not getting Casey Jones to the second or third film.
Right.
They're not going to, just has to be a turtle film. We can't let, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Bay did it. He didn't bring Casey Jones in until the second film.
Exactly.
So again, kind of like that about the old school filming of like superhero movies is they're like, bring everybody.
Right.
Whatever you want. And now I think fans are too expecting of telling the story word for word, line for line,
right?
Comics or whatever they're adapting from,
mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, we need to build up to that. And it's like, nah, we don't. You can,
yeah,
kind of,
especially now, you can
throw them all in together.
You can play.
Well, now your average movie is an hour longer, so that's this one was. So you have so much more time to play with it.
Yeah. And I think that you definitely could have fleshed his character out more. And man, I thought he was a great character. It's just.
I liked him in April's like dynamic.
Fun. But even then, that also seems kind of not developed. There's a lot of this movie is like, oh, there are some great elements that just aren't really, because like what connects, see, this is where I'm also writing a film currently. So I've just started to like get into that mindset of like, what is my story going to be like? And now I'm starting to, I'm starting to analyze this stuff and I'm looking at Casey, we bring up this dynamic, Casey Jones and April. And I'm like, what connects them though? Like, did we have a scene where he's like, oh, other than the job thing, but that doesn't like, that's not something where it goes, oh, like is she like, oh man, I really like this guy. I guess he's friendly to the turtles, right? And he helps take care of the turtles, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I remember, I can't remember exactly what part of the film, but I remember thinking like, she likes him. And then like the next scene together, they were like angry at each other again. And it's like, they probably could have fine-tune that relationship. And again, but I think that goes back to the overall plot.
Yes.
And we've mentioned that already. The plot wasn't
right. And this was, an independent film, like we said. Independent film, very small budget.
We said 13 million?
13 million. Not a lot to work with there. Majority of that money probably went to just building those turtles.
Yep. But those costumes are awesome.
They are great.
As a 90s kid, I'm a sucker for like that. I'm a sucker for it. Jurassic Park, like the king of animatronics, right?
Jurassic Park is
I'm just incredible. For that.
Which we'll have to watch that one too at some point.
Yeah. Definitely will.
But I think that's pretty much it. The only other thing that I have here is the end fight where they're on the roof and then Splinter falls off the roof. That was straight lifted from the very first comic book.
Was it?
Yeah. Shredder technically dies in that first comic.
And that's how he became Super Shredder?
And then he comes back with like 4 different versions of himself or something.
Yeah. I'm trying to look and make sure in my notes I don't have anything else, but that's cool. I remember seeing that, like rewatching it and being like, well, that's sort of lackluster. I know he comes back in the second film, right? Mm-hmm. He becomes Super Shredder in the second film.
Yeah, Super Shredder, yeah.
But I'm just like, this like character that looks so like badass.
He didn't do much.
He goes to charge after a rat. who dodges out of the way and then essentially falls off the building.
And
it's like, that's how
they have to cut around it too, because obviously this animatronic rat isn't going to be able to like throw this guy off this building. So there's a lot of like quick cuts, and the animatronic just kind of like, just kind of moves.
Yeah.
And then, but that's the limitations of the time, which is fine. So overall, I enjoyed this movie for the nostalgic aspect, but if I have to put my filmmaker hat on, this film suffers quite a bit. There are moments that kind of frustrate me plot-wise and pacing-wise, and being an editor, that really kind of can get under my skin. If a film stays too long, if a film is too short, if the plot is very thin, if the motivations don't make sense, I get kind of frustrated. It's like, come on, be better, film, be better. Even though it was 30 years, I understand that. But overall, I recommend this. I personally think this is a great film that you put on in the background when you're like doing other work, because there are moments where you look up and you go, oh, I love this part of the movie. It's like, oh, this is the cool part, or this is a part that I really enjoy. You look up, you watch it, and then you go back to what you're doing. So for me, currently where I'm at in my life, that's where this movie sits. What about you?
I probably agree with a lot of what you're saying. It's a turtle film, so I'm going to recommend it. Watch it. It's iconic in my childhood anyways.
Yeah.
So I love it. Great film. Certainly some plots, holes and things of that nature that with a rewatch it as an adult makes you go like, eh. But some of those great turtle dynamics are there. It's still a fun watch. And then we know that it leads into 2 more films. So watch it. Check it out.
All right, guys. So that's going to end our review of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the 1990 independent Jim Henson wonderful film. Thank you, Matt, for joining on another retro review. This was fun. I really, really love to watch these old movies, and I love watching them together with you. I think that's something we should continue.
Yeah. We have an idea of what we're going to do next, so stay tuned.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we know what we're going to do next. I don't want to say it here. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil it, but it's going to be another fun watch. And I'm very curious because I haven't seen this movie in a long time. So I wonder how much it's going to hold up. I don't know.
This film I think I've only seen like twice. So
this next film could be another one where I go, this plot was so thin, and I'm like, ugh, and I like freak out because the plot was not there. So who knows? Stay tuned if you guys want to hear me rip apart another plot. All right. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also follow Matt on his social medias. Matt, where can they follow you?
I'm on Hop on Pop Culture on YouTube as well as Spotify. I do like an independent, I do a podcast on there. I've been putting out some YouTube videos kind of at a little bit of this summer. I took kind of a break in YouTube, but I'll be back in the fall and winter. And you can check me and my buddy James out on Off Card Collectors on Instagram, as well as YouTube, where him and we go hunt toys and try to find holy grails within the collectible world of knickknacks and things.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next month for the next film. Take care.
Cowabunga.
Cowabunga.